Hi everybody, Mr. Johnson here, and we are going to talk about 8 different colored pencil techniques that you can practice in your sketchbook to help improve your colored pencil drawings. They are going to be light pressure, medium pressure, heavy pressure, hatching, cross-hatching, gradation, burnishing, and erasing. So we're going to talk about how to hold the pencil and how to use each of these techniques. We're going to practice them. So all you need is your sketchbook and your colored pencils, and join in with me. So I will demonstrate each of these for you, but we are going to start by laying out a grid of 8 boxes in our sketchbook to practice each of these techniques. So I'm going to draw out 8 boxes. I'm using a Sharpie just so that it's easier for you guys to see it. You can if you want. You don't have to do that. Just pencil is fine. But we want the boxes to be fairly large so that you have enough room to really practice. So I'm now splitting this into 8 boxes, and this is me trying to guess where the center is. I'm eyeballing it. The boxes don't have to be perfect. Lines don't have to be even. You know, my lines aren't straight on here. Who cares? It's just a way for you to practice these techniques. So this is what you're looking for. 8 rectangles. I'm going to label them so that as I go through my sketchbook later on, I know exactly what we did here today. So these are colored pencil techniques, and we are going to jump in with the very first one, and we will label each one of these boxes, right? Once you have this, isn't this lovely? And now I will zoom in for you on the first one. We'll label each box with the name of the technique. The first one is light pressure, which is up here on the screen. I'm going to label that in my box as well. And then we will talk about how to use very, very light pressure with colored pencils. Colored pencils are really all about 2 things: pencil pressure and layering. So if you can do layers of colors and control your pressure, that would be amazing. So you can use any color you want for this. I'm choosing green, but it does not matter. And we're going to talk about how to hold the pencil. So normally when people write things with pencil, they hold their pencil like this right up by the point. But that's not good for colored pencil, because what that does is the point then drives right into the paper and it makes grooves and marks. We don't want that. So instead, I want you to hold your colored pencil farther back. See, I'm holding it about halfway back on the pencil. And for light pressure, I'm just going to move that pencil back and forth, barely pressing onto the paper. So this is extremely light. It's barely touching the paper, giving just the very faintest amount of color. And you notice I'm going back and forth over it to help smooth out the color. We don't want stripes in there. If you have stripes, you're pressing too hard. Now I'm going to go back in the opposite direction and layer over it again. Again, very, very light pressure. Sorry, my lights are flickering as I'm recording this. But yay, power. Right, now I want you to try it again, holding the pencil horizontally. So if you see now, I'm holding the pencil like this. So I'm gripping it so that the pencil is pretty much flat. I'm only going to tilt it ever so slightly so that the pencil lead gets on the paper. We're going to try this way. I do the exact same thing with a lot of very light pressure. Now, these 2 different ways of holding the colored pencil are good for you to practice. You might like one better than the other. Maybe holding the pencil horizontal really works for you. Maybe it doesn't work for you, but at least you get to practice doing it both ways. So again, I'm going over in the opposite direction. Again, very light pressure. We're barely pressing down on the paper here, and that is exactly what you want. So that, my friends, is light pressure. Now, again, you can pause these as often as you need so that you can go back and practice them, but I'm going to go through all 8 of them in a row. So if you need to go back and watch the demo again or pause it while you do it now and catch up, that's great. So the next technique is medium pressure. You guessed it. It's going to be the exact same thing that we just did. We're just going to press a little bit harder. If this video loads, because right now it looks like it is not wanting to play, which is just fantastic because I'm trying to record this live, right? Isn't that great? So let's give it a pause. Let's have it play. There we go. Medium pressure. I apologize for my terrible handwriting, but that's why I've typed the names along the top. So we're doing the exact same thing. Hold the pencil halfway back. Move your hand back and forth so that we create these nice strokes of colored pencil. go back to the beginning, back over it again, right? And now we're pressing down just a little bit harder. We're not pressing as hard as you can because we want to have nice light pressure, but not as light as we did before. You'll notice there's a good amount of color here. And we're going to try it again now, holding the pencil horizontally. So again, this is just what we did with the light pressure, and we're going to try it horizontally here. So again, you're going to go back and forth over it, and try and get that as smooth as you can. So that, my friends, is our medium pressure. You can see the difference between the light and medium, but we are not pressing hard yet with the pencil at all. That is going to come with the next technique, which is heavy pressure. This is the fun part where you get to watch the little spinning ball load. There we go. All right, so in box number 3, we are labeling this heavy pressure. Oh boy, it is pausing again. There we go. No. The joys of technology. Heavy pressure. And again, I've typed it up at the top for you so you don't have to read my chicken scratch. So we're going to do the exact same thing. Hold the pencil about halfway back so that way you can have more even pressure. But now we're going to be pressing down harder. And you can see I'm getting a much more vibrant color this time. We're still going back and forth over our splotch of color so that we even it out. If there are stripes in it, it's uneven and you want to go back and fix that. A great way to help even it out, again, is to move your pencil in the opposite direction, like I did there, heavy pressure. Now we're going to hold the pencil horizontally. And with this, I am pressing down with my index finger, right? I'm pushing down with the index finger. That's what's giving it the pressure. So I'm holding it horizontally, but pressing down with my index finger. That's what's giving the pressure there. And again, I'm changing directions to help smooth it out. And there, my friends, is the heavy pressure. And you'll be able to easily see the difference, right, between the light pressure, medium pressure, and heavy pressure. So we want a clear difference in these values. And if you can master controlling the pressure of your pencil, you will be able to create so many different values using just simple, basic colored pencils. All right, so technique number 4 is a drawing technique that we have talked about when we did value, but it works really well with colored pencil also. So this is hatching. If you don't remember from earlier, hatching are sets of parallel lines. So I'm going to do these a couple different ways because they can be vertical, horizontal, diagonal. That doesn't matter. So just straight parallel lines like this, that is hatching. I'm going to do some horizontal. These are going to be farther apart, more like stripes. Seeing some bolder lines here. And now as I do this hatching, watch, I'm doing this very quickly. And doing it quickly allows the lines to feather out at the top. And they don't stop so abruptly. Something I'd like you to try with hatching is taking a second color. Here I have green first, now I'm taking blue, and doing another layer of hatching directly on top of the first one. Now, this isn't stripes, right? We're just making very quick marks in one direction. And this is a great technique to use for drawing hair or fur or grass, right? Layering that hatching together. It's not perfect, it's not even, but that's part of the point of hatching. And so give that a try. And again, feel free to pause these videos at any time so you can take some time to really practice it or go back and watch any of those demonstrations again. So the next technique, number 5, is cross hatching. This is hatching's older cousin where we are doing hatching twice overlapping each other, creating perpendicular lines that cross, hence cross hatching, right? Hatching in 2 different directions that cross each other. It's all it is. Again, we're going to try this with 1 color and with 2 colors. So first I will do some simple hatching, which is what we just did. Now I'll go over that in the opposite direction and we have cross hatching. Now, just like we did in drawing, right? Pencil pressure makes a difference. If you press harder, you get bolder lines. If you press lighter, you get much lighter lines. If those lines are closer together, they look more dense and darker. If the lines are farther apart, they look a lot lighter. So now I'm going to do some cross-hatching with 2 different colors. I'm choosing green and blue, and I'm going to cross-hatch multiple times. So I did it once. Now I'm going to do it again. I'll keep changing direction and filling this in with my multiple colors. This is great for textured objects because it adds a lot of visual interest. So that's what I'd like you to try for cross-hatching. Okay. Now, we're going to try a gradation. Ooh, gradation. Gradation just means a slow fade from dark to light. That's what a gradation is. So gradation will be the colors fading. You want them to fade as smoothly and evenly as possible from dark to light. So label this box with a gradation. Leave some room, though, because we're going to do this twice, the simple version and then the advanced version. It's also important to keep your colored pencil sharp. I did not realize I was sharpening this on camera. This is not part of a gradation, but you don't want your colored pencils to get too dull, or you won't be able to have as much control over the color. So, okay, let's pretend that didn't happen. Now, gradation. Again, I'm holding the pencil farther back, just like we did with light, medium, and heavy pressure. I'm starting with heavy pressure, making a dark area of color. And as I move the pencil across the page, that the color is getting lighter because I'm releasing the pressure. I am pressing less and less and less so that it fades from dark green to light green. And I was very happy with that, so I give that a nice smiley face. So there's my gradation. Now, if you think that you have mastered that, move on to the advanced version. This is a double gradation. So here we're going to, again, do the same thing we just did. Start with the pencil with heavy pressure, so that color is nice and dark. We're going to fade it so that it gets light, which is what we just did. But instead of stopping there, we are then going to fade it back dark again. So now I'm going to start using heavier pressure again as I move toward the right. And I've now done a double gradation. This is something that's used a lot for creating depth and value. If you have a round object, tubes and cylinders, bottles, right? Things like this can also show shines, and it can help show depth. So try your hand at the double gradation. When you do it, won't you just feel so special? I know you will. So this is my favorite colored pencil technique. This is a technique called burnishing. Burnishing is a great technique to do when you have finished layering in your color. Burnishing is like a top coat technique. So you have to apply all of your color first, and then you can burnish. And again, I will show you two different ways to do this technique using just simple colored pencils. So we labeled it burnishing. Now again, before we can do the burnishing technique, we just need a swatch of color. So I'm using my green pencil again. It doesn't matter what color you use. I'm just layering in some medium pressure color. So I'm going to go over that again in the opposite direction to help smooth it out. And here is my swatch of medium pressure. Now the colored pencil, you'll notice it leaves some texture from the grain of the paper. So burnishing helps get rid of that. So what you'll do is take a white colored pencil, layer it on top of your color, pressing really hard. This is the heaviest pressure you should apply, is a burnishing coat. It's going to do two things. It will smooth out the color, and it will also create kind of a glossy, waxy coating on the top. So it gives it a nice surface coat, gives it a different physical texture on top of the colored pencil. Now it does make the color lighter because you're adding a layer of white. So that is something to keep in mind. But that is a great finishing technique to help smooth out your colors. It gives a really cool effect. So now we'll show you a second way to burnish using the colored pencils that you have. So again, we just need a swatch of medium pressure color here. You can also burnish using another color. Traditionally, that's done with a lighter color, so I'm using yellow over the green here. Again, I'm pressing really hard with this yellow pencil, and what that's doing is mixing those colors so you get this bright lime green, this bright yellow green by mixing those colors. Experiment with layering different colors on top of one another. Burnish different ways, try different sets of colors. Now, you can burnish using a colorless blender or other special supplies, but if you don't have those, a white colored pencil or a light colored pencil will do just fine. And then the very last thing I'd like you to try for these techniques is using an eraser. Now, colored pencil does not erase completely, and that's because colored pencils have wax and pigment inside of them, and the wax does not erase that well. But I want to show you what you can do with an eraser. whether it's fixing mistakes or drawing in highlights. So what we need to do first is make some swatches of color. Again, any color you like. I would like you to do 3, though. Some light pressure, some medium pressure, and heavy pressure, because the eraser acts differently depending on how much colored pencil is laid down on the surface. So I have my light pressure, my medium pressure, and my heavy pressure here. Now I'm taking just a regular block eraser. You can use a pencil eraser for this or anything you have. I'm just going to erase some marks out across these bands of colors. And when you do that, you'll notice that the lightest pressure or the lightest color erases the most completely. Over the heavy pressure, the color does erase, but not 100%. Erases maybe 65% of the color. There is still going to be a ghost image of color left on the paper. So, it is possible to erase these colored pencils, but they do not erase completely. So now you have tried all 8 of these techniques. Now, once you have completed all 8 of these techniques and you have something that looks just like this, you want to take a photo of this and upload it to me so that I can check on your progress. If you have questions about them, please let me know. Now, after we are done with our 8 techniques, we are going to talk about layering and blending colored pencils, because these are the ways to create really bold and vibrant colors. So on another page, we're going to just do some colored pencil practice and some different exercises, layering and blending and shading in a sphere to create some realistic value and texture. So let's take a look at our first set of colored pencil exercises, and this is just going to be layering color. So we'll label this one layering the color. Okay, so I'm starting with green. So follow along with me. Now, you don't have to use the exact same colors, but if you do, you'll get a very similar effect to what I'm getting here. So I'm starting with dark green, and this is all with light or light to medium pressure. We're not pressing hard for any of these things. You always want to start light with colored pencils. If you like your color, you can add more layers. If you press too heavy, you can't layer as much on top of it. So now I'm taking the yellow green. I'm going to layer that on top. And what I'm doing here is showing you what the colors look like individually and what they look like where they overlap. So that's why I have the swatches kind of making this deformed plus shape, so that we have the dark green color and then the yellow green color. And you notice where those two overlap, the green is bolder. It's a more interesting color because it's made up of multiple layers of colored pencil. Now, how can we kick that up a notch? I'm glad you asked. So now let's layer on top of that with related colors. I'm using some light blue. Again, light pressure. We're not pressing hard. But I'm taking some light blue and layering that over the green. And I will do the same thing now with yellow. Since blue and yellow are the colors that make green, you can layer them on top. We're not pressing too hard. Right, still light pressure, but it's going to make that green color so much more interesting to look at because it's built up of layers of all of these different related colors. Look how bold that green is in the center now. It was still all with light pressure. We haven't even pressed hard because it's dark green, yellow, green, blue, and yellow. So now we're going to add some heavy pressure on top of these colors, and I'm showing you what the plain colors look like, the dark green and the yellow green here. So now I'm going to press a little bit harder with some medium pressure on top here. And these are layers and layers and layers of color, and that's going to make our colored pencil so exciting. So practice layering different colors and see what you get. The best advice I have for you is to experiment like this with layering different colors and see what you like the best before you apply it to your final drawing. So let's try another example. This is using a method I call a sandwich method. So if we're looking to create a really vibrant orange color, we're going to start with some light pressure orange, taking the orange pencil, making a swatch of light pressure, trying to make it as even as I can, but there it is. Now I'm going to go over this with yellow. And again, I'll use all the related colors, so I'll be adding yellow and red to this. So I'm going over yellow again with light pressure, just overlapping part of it, and you can do this however you want. I'm only coloring over part of it so that you can see the difference. But you can color over the whole thing if you like. Now I'm taking the red, and again with very light pressure, going over part of this swatch. And you'll notice where the red, orange, and yellow overlap, which is down here, we're getting the most vibrant orange color. But we're not going to end here. So the sandwich technique means that we start and end with the same color. So think about the color you want as your bread. So in this case, it's orange. We started with orange. That's our bread. Our red and yellow is the filling in our sandwich. And then another piece of bread is that orange on top. And now we have practiced some layering. Isn't that cool? So hopefully you end up with something like this. So now let's talk about blending colored pencils. Yes, yes, yes. Blend those colored pencils. So blending the pencils, I'm going to use red and purple. You can use any two colors that you like. Blending colored pencils is really important in order to get a nice, slow, soft blend. We don't want harsh lines in between or transitions of colors. So to do this, we're going to do a gradation, which is one of the techniques we just went over. But here we're doing a gradation that overlaps each other. So it's two of them in opposite directions. I will show you what I mean. I'll first do a gradation in red. That's my first color. If you're using blue and yellow, or if you're using, orange and red, that's great. But I'm doing a gradation here with the red. It starts dark on the left, it fades away on the right. Now I will start a second gradation in the opposite direction, going right on top of it. I'm starting my purple, darkest on the right, and it's fading as it moves over to the left. And that way, the space in between the colors, where they are both lightest, is where those colors blend. You see, it's a smooth, soft blend, a transition from one color to another. That's what we want. I'm going to show you often what I see students doing in the beginning and how to fix that. So if you notice here, this doesn't fade all the way. So now when I overlap it with my purple, if that doesn't fade all the way either, we get these harsh sections where it doesn't blend smoothly. Right? It's really bold and dark in here. So those are our colored pencil exercises. I hope that you learned something right using these techniques. If you need help, please let me know, and I cannot wait to see what you create.